You're standing in your own living room holding your toddler's juice cup when your sister-in-law storms in like a hurricane screaming that you hit her child, and before you can even say a word, your husband, your own husband, turns to you and says, "You've always had a temper." Just like that, the air's sucked out of the room. Your mother-in-law's yelling for you to pack your bags. And within hours, CPS is at your door with questions that make your stomach drop. Your whole world, your family, your name, your child is collapsing over one ugly lie. But what they didn't know is that I had proof, a single video that shattered every lie they clung to and exposed the real monster in this story. My name's Rachel. I'm 36 years old and living in Glendale, Arizona. Quiet, suburban place, where the biggest drama is usually someone's dog getting loose or the neighbors arguing over trash bins. I used to think things like betrayal and scandal only happened in movies or TV shows. The kind of chaos that belonged to someone else's life, not mine. I thought I had built something solid. I'd been married to James for 8 years. We had a daughter together, Lily, who just turned 6, my little sunshine. She's funny, curious, always asking big questions about life and stars and dreams. Our life wasn't perfect, but it felt steady. Grocery runs on Saturdays, cartoons on Sunday mornings, lazy barbecues in the backyard. We weren't flashy or exciting, but we were real, believed in what we had. I believed in James. James was the calm one, steady, responsible, the guy who always remembered birthdays and set the coffee the night before. He wasn't overly affectionate, but I thought his love was the quiet kind, the dependable kind. I did most of the parenting while he worked long hours, and I was okay with that. I thought we were a team. I really, truly did. I even tried to be patient when his brother Mike moved in with us. Mike had lost his job and needed a place to stay just for a few weeks. That turned into months. James kept saying Mike just needed a little help, a little time to get back on his feet. I agreed, even though I didn't like the way Mike would stare too long or how he never cleaned up after himself. But family helps family, right? That's what I kept telling myself. At first it was little things. James would come home later than usual. He started locking his phone, which he had never done before. When I asked, he said it was because of work emails, confidential stuff. And then there were the glances between him and Mike. Sometimes when I walked into a room, they'd go quiet. I noticed Mike wasn't really looking for jobs like he said he was. He spent most of his time lounging around or running random errands at weird hours. But the truth? I didn't want to be suspicious. I wanted to believe that I was overthinking, that I was being paranoid. I kept telling myself, this is your husband. This is your daughter's father. You have a family together. I tried to shake off the pit in my stomach. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Sunday afternoon, clear skies, soft breeze, one of those deceptively peaceful days. Lily was coloring in the living room and James said he needed to help Mike run an errand. I nodded and barely paid attention. It seemed normal. But hours passed and neither of them came home. My calls went unanswered. Finally, that night, James came back alone, looking flustered. He barely spoke. The next day, I found a crumpled receipt in his jacket pocket from a fancy restaurant. 2 dinners, 1 bottle of wine. And it wasn't a work thing. I confronted him, and he claimed he'd taken Mike out to lift his spirits. But there was a shift in his tone, in his eyes. Something cold. Detached, like I was annoying him just for asking. Still, I didn't have proof. Until a week later, Lily, my sweet innocent Lily, said something that shattered me. She was playing on the floor and said, "Uncle Mike was in your bed with Daddy yesterday." My whole body went still. I asked her again, and she repeated it without hesitation. No fear, no malice, just a child repeating something she'd seen. My heart dropped. My hands started shaking. I wanted to scream, cry, throw something, but I didn't. I just sat down and felt everything fall apart inside me. The days after that were a blur. I searched his phone while he was in the shower and found everything: texts, photos, even plans to move in together. James and Mike weren't just having an affair. They were planning a future. My husband, my brother-in-law. They were talking about raising Lily together as if I was the problem they had to remove. But nothing prepared me for what came next. I told James I knew. He didn't deny it. He actually looked relieved. Like the secret had been heavy and now that it was out, he could finally be free. I turned to his parents for support. I thought they'd be furious, shocked, something. Instead, they looked at me like I was the one destroying the family. His mother said, "We always knew James and Mike had a special connection." His father said, "I needed to accept change with grace." And then came the real punch to the gut. They said with Mike and James planning to raise a child together, I should help support them financially. "You want Lily to grow up with stability, don't you?" they asked. I laughed. I actually laughed because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Support them? Support them? After they blew my life apart? After they turned my marriage into a joke and tried to rewrite the meaning of family right in front of me? They wanted me to contribute to their happily ever after. I walked out that day and haven't looked back. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was deep, structural. A whole family that stood behind a lie, behind a fantasy, and left me standing in the ashes of what used to be my life. It started with Sarah, James's sister. She's the kind of person who always brings a storm with her, never calm, never just visiting. There's always drama, always some crisis, and somehow, she's always the one suffering most. Her marriage blew up last year. Her husband left her after what I can only imagine were years of chaos, and ever since then, she's been couch hopping, mostly living at Margaret's place, James' mom, just a few blocks away from us. She's got a son named Ethan. He's 8. Loud, wild, and honestly a handful is putting it nicely. He breaks things, lies often, and throws tantrums like a toddler. But I've always tried to be kind, patient. I reminded myself often, he's a kid, he's been through a lot, just be the adult. Still, Sarah made it hard. She'd show up unannounced, dump Ethan on me like I was free childcare, raid our fridge and act like she owned the place. I swallowed my pride for years just to keep the peace in the family. But that Sunday changed everything. I was in the kitchen slicing strawberries for Lily's lunch, humming along to some song on the radio, when I heard the back door slam open. Sarah stormed in with Ethan trailing behind her, and from the look on her face, I knew something was coming, but I didn't expect that. Her eyes locked on me like she'd just walked in on a crime scene. "You hit my son," she screamed, pointing at me like I was a threat to everyone in the house. My heart jumped. I froze, knife still in my hand. I stared at her, trying to understand what she was even talking about. "What?" I managed to say. "What are you talking about?" My voice cracked, not from guilt, but from sheer shock. Sarah yanked Ethan forward like a prop in some twisted show. "Tell her, Ethan," she barked. He looked at the ground, rubbing his arm, and mumbled, "She slapped me." That's when everything around me got quiet, like the whole world just muted. I couldn't breathe. I hadn't touched that boy. Not even once. The only words I'd said to him that day were, "Please don't jump on the couch." I'd been in the kitchen the entire time, no yelling, no hitting, no nothing. But Sarah kept going, loud, angry, crying on command. She said I screamed at him for spilling juice, that I slapped him across the face, that Ethan was terrified of me. Her voice got higher and faster with every word, like she was building momentum with every lie. I swore on Lily's life I didn't touch him. My hands were shaking. I begged her to calm down, to stop yelling, to think. But then James came in. I'd though thepathied step in, settle things, back me up. Instead, he looked at me like I was a stranger. "What's going on?" he asked, already tense. And Sarah turned to him, eyes full of crocodile tears, and repeated the story like she'd been rehearsing it all morning. She painted a picture of a screaming woman losing it on a poor little boy. And then James turned to me and said it. "You've always had a temper. Did you lose it?" That sentence, that one sentence, it hit harder than anything Sarah could have screamed. My own husband, the man who knew me better than anyone, the man I had built a family with. He didn't even stop to ask questions. He didn't pull me aside. He didn't say, "I know you wouldn't do this." No, he went straight to doubt, straight to suspicion. And in that moment, something cracked inside me. Because this wasn't just some wild lie from a messy sister-in-law. This was betrayal. Pure and simple. Not just from Sarah, but from James, the man who should have stood beside me, who should have protected me, or at the very least, believed me. But instead, he stared at me like I was dangerous, like he didn't even recognize the woman standing in front of him anymore. An hour later, things got worse. Margaret, James's mom, showed up acting like she owned the place. She's never liked me, always saying I'm too opinionated or direct, like that's a crime. She marched into my kitchen and said, "For peace in the home, you need to leave for a few days." I was floored. "This is my house," I shot back. "You weren't even here. You don't know what happened." But Margaret's eyes were cold. She'd already picked Sarah's side. They've always babied Sarah, treating her like some delicate flower who can't do wrong. I thought that was the worst of it, but 2 days later, CPS knocked on my door. The investigator, Emily, was calm but serious. "We received a report you may have physically harmed your nephew," she said. "I need to ask you some questions and check on your daughter." My stomach sank. My throat tightened. I could barely get the words out. "I didn't do anything, I swear." Emily nodded, all professional, and said she just needed the full picture. That's when I remembered the backyard camera. It's motion activated, set up to watch Lily when she plays outside, but it faces the back window and sliding door. I hadn't even thought about it until that moment. I grabbed my laptop, pulled up the footage and showed Emily. She leaned in, eyes glued to the screen. The video showed Ethan playing alone, spilling red juice on the floor. He looked toward the hallway. Nobody was there. Then Sarah walked in, crouched down, whispered something to him. Ethan nodded and, then clear as day, Sarah slapped him on the cheek. Not hard enough to knock him down, but enough to leave a mark. Emily gasped, hand over her mouth. "You need to see the rest of this clip," she said quietly, clicking forward. A few seconds later, Sarah looked straight at the camera with this creepy, knowing smile, like she knew it was recording, but didn't care. Then she grabbed Ethan's hand and led him to the door. Emily looked at me, her face dead serious. "We need to talk privately." My hands were shaking as she closed the laptop and said, "I need to make some calls. Right now." She stepped outside, leaving me staring at that frozen image of Sarah's twisted grin. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it had burst out of my chest. 10 minutes later, Emily came back, her tone sharper. "I'm filing a formal report," she said. "This is a different case now. There's evidence of a false CPS report and actual child abuse by your sister-in-law." I could barely nod, too numb to speak. She told me to stay calm, not confront anyone, and maybe have a friend stay over if I felt unsafe with my in-laws nearby. I thanked her and she left. That night, James came home late, acting like nothing was wrong. I sat at the kitchen table, watching him drop his keys, pretending everything was normal. Then he said, "I talked to Sarah. She says you're flipping this on her now." My blood boiled, but I kept my voice steady. "You want to see the video?" He blinked. "What video?" I played the clip. He watched in silence, his jaw tightening, then his face going pale. When it ended, I said, "She hit her own kid," told him to lie, then smiled at the camera. He slumped into a chair, muttering, "I didn't know. I wasn't having it." "You believed her over me. You let your mom tell me to get out. You acted like I'm dangerous around kids. Do you know what that could have done to me?" He started to say, "I didn't mean," but I cut him off. "You didn't mean to ruin my life? To make Lily think I might not be around because of a lie? You let them do this." He just stared at the table, saying nothing. The next day, Sarah and Margaret showed up again. Margaret said I was spreading lies and edited the video to make Sarah look bad. I laughed. "You think I can fake a security video? It's legal, it's mine, and CPS already has it." Sarah snapped, "I'll sue you for defamation." "Recording without permission is illegal," I fired back. "It's my property, my camera. Try me." Margaret tried to play the family card, saying we needed to stop this before it goes further. I shot back, "You mean before everyone knows what really happened?" Sarah lost it, hissing, "You always thought you were better than us, with your nice house and perfect little girl. You're just loud and angry and we're done pretending." James overheard it all from the stairs. He didn't defend me, again. So I made the call. "You want her?" I told him. "You want this poison in your life? Go live with her. I'm done." That night, I packed a bag, took Lily, and went to my sister's in Mesa. An hour later, things somehow got even worse. Margaret, James's mom, came storming in like she ran the place. She didn't knock, didn't call, just barged in like this was her living room and not mine. She's never liked Menno, really. Always said I was too direct, too opinionated, like having boundaries made me disrespectful. I knew she'd never picked me for James, but I thought she at least respected the family we'd built. Turns out I was wrong. She walked straight into my kitchen, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "For the sake of peace in the home, you need to leave for a few days." I laughed in disbelief. "This is my house," I told her. "You weren't even here. You don't know what happened." But her eyes were already made up, cold. She'd picked her team, and it wasn't me. Margaret has always babied Sarah. treated her like she was this fragile flower that couldn't be touched, couldn't be blamed, couldn't be wrong. I thought I'd seen the worst of it until 2 days later when I heard the knock at the door. It was CPS. A woman named Emily stood there, calm but serious, badge clipped to her belt. "We received a report that you may have physically harmed your nephew," she said, her voice steady but heavy. "I need to ask you some questions and also check on your daughter." My throat closed up. I felt my knees go weak. "I didn't do anything," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I swear." Emily nodded like she'd heard that 1,000 times, but she wasn't rude, just focused. "We need the full picture," she said. And that's when it hit me. The backyard camera. We had a motion-activated security camera set up to watch Lily while she played outside. It wasn't meant for anything serious, it just gave me peace of mind. But it faced the back window and the sliding door. Maybe, just maybe, it caught something. I sprinted for my laptop, heart racing, and opened the footage. Emily leaned in beside me. The clip showed Ethan playing by himself, spilling red juice on the tile. He looked toward the hallway. No one else was there. A few seconds later, Sarah entered the frame, knelt down next to him, whispered something into his ear. Ethan nodded, and then, clear as day, Sarah slapped him, across the cheek. Not hard enough to send him flying, but hard enough to leave a mark. Emily gasped. "Oh my God," she said, covering her mouth. I skipped forward. A few seconds later, Sarah looked directly at the camera. She smirked. A creepy, smug little smile like she knew it was there and didn't care. Then she took Ethan's hand and led him out the back door. Emily turned to me, her face completely different now. "I need to make some calls," she said, standing up and closing the laptop. "Right now." She stepped outside, leaving me staring at the paused video. Sarah's twisted grin frozen on the screen. My whole body was shaking. A few minutes later, Emily returned. Her tone was sharp. "I'm filing a formal report," she said. "This is a different case now. We have evidence of a false CPS report and actual child abuse by your sister-in-law." I couldn't even speak. I just nodded, numb. She told me to stay calm, not to confront Sarah or Margaret, and maybe have a friend or family member stay over if I felt unsafe. I thanked her. She left. That night, James came home like it was just another day. Dropped his keys on the counter, kicked off his shoes, acted like we weren't in the middle of a nightmare. I sat at the kitchen table, watching him. Then he said, "I talked to Sarah. She says you're flipping this whole thing on her now." My blood boiled, but I kept my voice steady. "You want to see the video?" He blinked. "What video?" So I showed him. He didn't say a word. Watched it all, from the juice spill to the slap to the smile. By the end, he looked like someone had punched him in the chest. "She hit her own kid," I said, told him to lie, then smiled at the camera like it was a joke. James sat down slowly, pale. "I didn't know," he whispered. I wasn't letting him off easy. "You believed her over me," I snapped. "You let your mother walk in here and tell me to leave my own home? You made me look like a threat around children. Do you even know what that kind of accusation can do to someone?" He started. "I didn't mean..." But I cut him off. "You didn't mean to destroy my life? You didn't mean to make Lily think I might disappear because of something I didn't do?" He stared at the table, silent. The next day, Sarah and Margaret showed up again, loud and dramatic. Margaret claimed I'd doctored the footage to make Sarah look bad. "You think I can fake a security video?" I said. "It's mine. It's legal. CPS already has it." Sarah yelled, "I'll sue you for defamation. Recording someone without their permission is illegal." I shot back, "It's my house, my camera. Try me." Margaret started talking about how we needed to stop before things got out of hand. "You mean before everyone finds out the truth?" I asked. That's when Sarah snapped. "You've always thought you were better than us with your clean house and your little princess. You're just loud and angry and we're done pretending." James was standing on the stairs. He heard everything, and once again he said nothing. Didn't defend me, didn't correct them, didn't step between us, so I made the decision myself. I looked him in the eye and said, "You want them, then go live with them. I'm done." That night, I packed a bag, grabbed Lily, and drove to my sister's house in Mesa. And for the first time in days, I could finally breathe. The court date came faster than I expected, and suddenly I was sitting in a freezing Phoenix courtroom that smelled like old paper and stress. I had my friend Laura sitting beside me, solid as a rock, while CPS representatives sat to our left, organized and calm. James was there too, sitting alone across the room, shoulders hunched like he was trying to disappear into his own guilt. Sarah didn't sit at all. She was already in custody, shackled at the ankles, her lawyer scrambling and failing to get the hearing delayed again. James wouldn't even look at me. Couldn't. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up, hands slightly shaking but my voice steady. I told the judge everything. I told them how I had been falsely accused of hitting a child, how I nearly lost my daughter over a lie, how my own husband stood by his sister and told her to make it look real, how they tried to ruin me because I refused to stay silent, because I stood up to their twisted version of what family means. I told them how I stayed loyal while they stabbed me in the back and watched me bleed. When I was done, the judge turned to James, his face unreadable but his voice cold and sharp. "You conspired to deceive CPS," he said. "You knowingly supported a false claim. You endangered your child's emotional stability and violated your partner's civil rights." James muttered something like, "I didn't think it would go that far," but the judge didn't flinch. "You knew it was a lie. You are just as responsible." The ruling came fast and hard. James lost all custody rights, no shared parenting, no unsupervised weekends, just monitored visits at a court-approved center. Sarah was banned from contacting Ethan indefinitely, and because Margaret had enabled the entire thing, she was deemed unfit as well. Ethan was placed in foster care, and I could only hope that somewhere, finally, he'd have a chance at peace. As for Lily, I was granted full custody on the spot. James didn't even fight it. He just sat there, blinking like someone pulled the rug out from under his entire life. With Laura's help, I filed a civil suit next. Emotional distress, defamation, intentional infliction of trauma. Sarah pled guilty to avoid trial, and the plea deal still included 2 to 3 years in county and permanent loss of custody. James tried to offer a quiet settlement to avoid more public attention, but I didn't want quiet. I wanted the truth to echo loud. The judge awarded me enough money to not only rebuild, but to completely start over. I sold the house, packed up everything that still felt like mine, and took Lily to Flagstaff. It's quiet here, quieter than I've known in years. Lily sleeps through the night now. Her giggles sound lighter. She's healing. And me? I still wake up some mornings and hear Emily's voice in my head. Soft but serious. "You need to see the rest of this clip." That video didn't just clear my name. It saved my life. The camera I installed to keep my daughter safe ended up being the very thing that exposed the people who tried to break me. Weeks later, James texted me once. Just once. "I made a mistake." That's all it said. No apology, no explanation. I stared at it for a second, then deleted it. No reply. He doesn't deserve one. Because, here's the truth, I don't need revenge. I don't need them to suffer. I don't need their regret. I have my daughter, my peace, my name back. That's enough. That's everything. I survived their storm. And now? I've finally stepped into the sun. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who cause the deepest scars. But truth, no matter how quiet, always finds a way to speak. If this story hit you hard or made you feel seen, don't forget to subscribe and check out the next video. The real ones always rise.